Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harpin on Rugby preview show. Joining me to look ahead to Leinster's last, but definitely not least, match of the season is someone making his 57th Harpin Pod appearance. A warm welcome back to Mr. Neil Keego. Keegan.
I'm not nervous at all. Everything is
Nervous?
fine.
What's nervous?
This is going to be a great weekend. Don't worry about it. Nothing to worry about. Hope you are well.
Yeah, right. Well, listen, just before we start, I just want to remind viewers of a new little feature we call AI Rugby, where we put the two squads from our feature match through the chat GBT just to see what kind of match it can generate just for the crack. I hate to say it, but over the past 2 weeks we've run it so far, it got the winner right both times, if not the score. So we've done it again this week, and you can see the score in the virtual Champions Cup final updated throughout the show right there in the top right hand corner, and we'll check in right at the end. So anyway, Keego, after the season Leinster had, we all know things came crashing down last weekend, but the way this crazy European rugby calendar works means we've all had to take that disappointment and turn it into excitement and optimism in just a matter of days. How have you coped with it all?
Well, as soon as the final whistle went last week, it was gone. Now, obviously, if the result went the other way, it'd be a different story. But no, kind of as soon as we got to the last quarter of that game, we knew it was close. We kind of knew, okay, it's going to go one way or the other. It's going to be close, but we have to start looking at next week. And that's without any disrespect to our semi-final opponents last week. I hope they go and win it. But it was literally the whistle goes. I had no real emotion afterwards. I was a little bit good, but it was moved on quickly. We kind of go, right, who's fit? Who played the game? How did Henshaw get on? What's the story? And that's kind of how the week has gone. The week started off positive, and I'm still positive now. But the closer we are getting, and obviously the teams were named a few minutes ago, I have no hair to pull out. I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I managed to get through it barely. How about yourself?
Well, I suppose I was a little bit more down because I knew I'd committed myself to have to watch it again to put together a pod the following night. So, and talk about it as well. So there was a bit of that. And of course, like when you're there and you're seeing, I mean, you're delighted for Munster fans celebrating. You're delighted for any fans of any sport celebrating. They were having a great time jumping around. So it was sort of mixed emotions there through the week. But then, of course, we had to turn it around this week. There's this quote going around from Andrew Porter. It was driving me crazy. People were taking it up the wrong way. The idea is you're always focused on this week's match. I mean, this process of putting last week behind you and looking towards next week, whether you won or lose, that's what they do all the time anyway.
Yeah,
he was obviously asked a lead-in question, and his answer was kind of cherry-picked, made into a tweet, and of course everyone said, "Oh, there's the Leinster arrogance, blah blah blah." But that's exactly how you should be looking at it. You got to put last week behind you. The only important match is this week, and that's what he was focused on. And that's what we fans should be doing as well.
100%. That's what being a professional sports person is. You can't dwell on it because the next game is right there. That's all he said. But I think in final week they're looking for headlines. They're looking for tweets and things like it. Happened a couple of times to him in the same interview. But look, he live and learn. We know what the story is.
Absolutely. Okay, so listen, so now it's time to actually start harping on this week's feature match, which is, of course, as you can see there, Leinster v Stade Rochelle in the final of the 22-23 Heineken Champions Cup. It kicks off in the neutral venue of the Aviva Stadium at 4:45 p.m. on Saturday, May the 20th, and the match is being broadcast on RTE2, BT Sport 2, and ITV1. And Leinster named their starting lineup at lunchtime on Friday. So let's have a look, starting with the back line. 15, Hugo Keenan. 14, Jimmy O'Brien. 13, Gary Ringrose. 12, Robbie Henshaw. 11, James Lowe. 10, Ross Byrne. And 9, Jemison Gibson Park.
Delighted for Jimmy as usual. The interesting thing, I had a quick flick back, and I think some people were talking about it during the week. I kind of sat through highlights and long highlights of the final last year. A lot of penalties were conceded in the middle of the pitch. And I think if Rosser has his boots on, which he does, death taxes Ross Byrne, that's going to be something that may backfire for our opposition. But in terms of a final, in terms of business time, that's you see the players that have come through recently, the Hugo Keenans, the Jimmy O'Brien, sitting in there with a fit Henshaw, a fit Ringrose. They're the envy of every other team in terms of midfield. There's a lot of skill, a lot of footwork. Not necessarily the KGs, but the footwork is right there.
Absolutely. I mean, it's great to see Lowe back in particular. He was out in the pitch warming up before the Munster game last week. He was in part of the wider squad for the day, and I suppose the question is, I mean, only they know exactly how fit he is. You hope he's ready to play the full match. Robbie, of course, back in the team as well, came through well last week. He was quiet last week, but he's playing a different kind of role because he was 13 and he had a strong carrying 12 inside him. He was taking a lot of the ball himself. But he did set up that try in the first minute. So or not the first minute, but early in the game. And and now he's in his more familiar pairing with Ringrose, and we know how they can do together, especially on the defensive side where we'll be expecting a lot. So there's loads to talk about that team as well, and we know they can perform. Okay, we'll move into the forward pack now, and at number 1, Andrew Porter; 2, Dan Sheehan; 3, Tyke Furlong; 4, Ross Maloney; 5, and captain James Ryan; 6, Claylan Doris; 7, Josh van der Flair; and 8, Jack Conan.
Just going by how you're reading those out, I think we need to get you into the RDS on match day. I think again, it's our final. It's great to see Maloney getting the start. Interesting with Jenkins on the bench. La Rochelle have done the opposite with the beef. Not that Maloney's a small guy. I think Andrew Porter has a big job. Obviously, Porter and Furlong obviously have a big job. I think we have a better 2. I think they're going to look around the team and try and find where they can squeeze out penalties out of that Leinster team. Unfortunately, the numbers say our number 1 is where a couple of penalties are going to come from. So he has a big job to do, not only on that side of the scrum, but in terms of keeping the head, which finals bring final performances. I think the biggest shock as a human being was just looking at the stats of the opposing number 3s. We've all seen Tyke Furlong in real life. I wouldn't drive at him in my car. He's got 20 kilos to make up against Antonio. That's petrifying. But again, you kind of go, and Antonio's can't do 80 minutes. We know Furlong can do 80 minutes. So, and there is a footwork difference there. So if we can figure out the scrum, I think we've got a better 2. I think skill-wise, we have a better front row. It's the beef that we've got to navigate. I think the captain has a big performance in there with Skelton. They're going in there to try and stop this 40 phase attack to tire out the team, or does it keep the ball in play type situation. Skelton's going to be trying to steal everything. He's going to be trying to pick people's pockets in the stadium. That's how much stealing he's going to be trying to do. It's so exciting and it's so petrifying. Between this and Katie Taylor on Saturday night, I don't know what's going to happen.
No, just to qualify something there, just before we went on air, there was a tweet from Rory O'Connor that Ty Furlong actually sat out the captain's run. So, but they're assured, they were given assurances that he'll be ready to start tomorrow. But of course, I never really trust the 23 until they're physically on the pitch at kickoff time. But we'll see what happens in that regard. Yeah, fingers crossed that whole team can line out for us. The back row was interesting. We saw Ryan Baird to have a stormer last week, so we thought he might get in there at number 6, but really anyway you slice that, we got 4 frontline back rowers there, and you put them any which way, and they get Claylan Doris into the team no matter what. It's great to see that Josh came through. He had a longer shift last week than we expected, and he's available to start. So it's an amazing pack, like you say. I mean, whatever they're losing in poundage to their opposite numbers. I mean, the main thing from Leinster is cohesion, how they play together, and that makes up for that when you're hitting the rucks at the right time, and support play, chasing kicks, all that stuff, which they've all shown they've been able to do this season, last week included. So hopefully we'll get more of that on Saturday. Okay, on to the bench now, and my audition for the Leinster MC continues. 16, Ronan Kelleher. 17, Cian Healy. 18, Michael Alatoa. 19, Jason Jenkins. 20, Ryan Baird. 21, Luke McGrath. 22, Kieran Frawley. And 23, Charlie Natai.
There's a lot of speed on the bench, which is something, obviously Baird coming on, the athlete he is, the forward he is, the speed he runs at is not something that La Rochelle want to look at, 55 minutes in after being forced to play the game at a high intensity pace for that long. We know they're fit. You don't get to the final of this competition without being fit, but there's fitness and there's Leinster jitsu. If Leinster can perform at optimal or above optimal, it's a final. That's what we need to do. And then we start seeing these changes getting made. Healy's still got gas in the boots. Kelleher, great gas in the boots. And then Frawley and Charlie Natai's turned a corner in the last month. It's a very strong bench. I would not fancy, because they're going to have to keep Rog is going to have to keep as many of them on the pitch for as long as possible. And when we start seeing changes and you see the speed coming on, the skill coming on, Healy with a bit of beef coming on, they're not gonna enjoy that. So I'm enjoying the balance of the bench.
Yeah, we were debating all through the week what kind of, what way Leinster were going to go. Of course, you've always got the option of going 6-2 on the bench. And you would think that supposedly if our biggest weakness was coming up against a stronger pack, that you think we'd want the extra forward. But you could argue that Charlie Natai being on the bench with his carrying is sort of like an extra forward. He's that kind of 12, and he's a very strong guy to come on for a 20-minute shift at the end, especially going up against someone like Dante. So it's a good mix there. Like you say, Jenkins at the start of the season, I'd say if you picked a team for a potential final against Rochelle, you might have thought Jenkins would be starting, but Ross Maloney has earned his place. But I tell you, Jenkins would do well coming on. Kelleher, Healy, Alatoa. I mean, if we started with that front row, we wouldn't be doing too badly at all. Pretty much every name there has performed well, and of course, Kieran Frawley can cover so many different positions as well. So it's probably the strongest bench we've put out this season so far. I think you can safely say, yeah.
Yeah, could I just say that the bench and not going 6-2, not changing all that sort of stuff is another vote of confidence. Even though it was a kick in the bum last week, this is a vote of confidence in the entire squad. And it's, you know what I mean? I would have been worried if they switched it around based on the opposition. We're going in to play our game. They have to come here and play us. We're not going to play them. And I think that might be a bit of an attitude shift from last year. We're going to play our game and they have to come and play us. And that's going to be the difference.
100%. I mean, we've been seeing the teams throughout the season. They haven't gone 6-2, I think, at all this season. So it's something you need to be ready for and prepared for and ready to do. And like you say, they're just sticking with what they've gone with, and they have enough strength there in the bench anyway as it is. Okay, so now it's time to have a look at our opposition, which is, of course, La Rochelle or Stade Rochelle. For one final time this season, my graphics department is going to put all the names up on the screen, or if you're listening to the podcast, you'll find them all in the program notes. How are they looking to you, Keego?
Petrifying. Genie Mac. Like they obviously switched Delan out, which, to be fair, having him come off the bench isn't a bad shout either. You look at the shift they're going to expect out of Skelton. He won't make the 80, and you kind of a bit of speed coming on with a bit of beef coming on. It's a similar thing, but Genie Mac, that front row, like the scrum is going to be worth. I keep saying this throughout the season. I don't actually mean it literally. The scrum is going to be worth twice the price of admission, because it is the old school wrestling, the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. We've got a lot of skill, if you go skill for skill, there's only one front row in it. There's only one pack in it. But if you look at the beef is always a balancing factor. Like in boxing, if you've got a right hand, you've always got an equalizer. So if Leinster were able to get a little bit above 51% in the scrum, let's say, that's one mental bullet fired. But if you look at that second row, Zazie and Skelton, it's petrifying, and they're not jobbers, they're not unskillful. Gas may be the only issue based on the amount of game time the entire La Rochelle squad has had, but like the adrenaline is going to be going. Like Skelton's going to get an hour in. I know he's done long shifts against us. He's another ghost that we have to get rid of. Just going back to when he used to wear the stripy jersey that we used to come up against in finals. We need to get him neutralized, and that's why I think, I don't know if you can double team him from the second row, but Gene Mac, we need him neutralized. We need Antonio neutralized, but that list gets longer and longer the further you go down the team. So that's why I think when you look at our bench, you look at what's going on. We're saying instead of us going to neutralize you, we're playing our game. You come and neutralize us. And I think that's what we're going to try and do, because if you think about, right, okay, we keep Skelton quiet, there's 4 players who can still do a similar job. Now, the attributes are different, but they can still do a similar job. That's a waste of time. We've got to play our game and have them come and try and neutralize us, run them around. And, the breakdown, we've got to be educational in what we go for and what we don't go for. Josh is great at picking his moments. Doris is great at picking his moments. Conan is brilliant. But we've got to pick our moments, so that forcing them into every single breakdown, and they have to get back up on their feet and reset and reset. Those little get-ups, they add up throughout the game. But to go back to your initial question that I've been trying to avoid, they look pretty good.
It's amazing. I mean, on the one hand, we have to try, like you say, we have to play our own game and forget about what happened last year, but or the year before even. But there was also the fact that we just could not score a try for love nor money against them, and we got to realize what their threats are. And we've got this referee, we've got. And he's going to be Jaco Piper is going to be policing the breakdown. Only to an extent. I think it could be a free for all, a bit like last week there, but they've got threats like Botti especially and Bugari and whatever. That once they get a stiff getting over that ball, so we're going to be toast. So the question is that if we're going 7, 8, 9, 10 phases and nothing's happening, we've got to have an option. We've got to go to that option, and it's going to be like the decision making on the day is going to be crucial. And like you say, they've got like right the way through the 23. They've got threats. Familiar name there, Alton Delan coming off the bench as well. But it's an amazing lineup. It does match up really well. But like you say, with Leinster's cohesion, the thing we always have to remember, no matter how scary their team looks, they're looking at ours and remembering who won the Grand Slam, and it definitely works both ways. So go on.
I think our big boots. You look at James Lowe, you look at Keane, you look at all these guys. I think if we get to phase 6, 7, and 8, nothing's happening. It's the boot. We get the ball down there and challenge that line out and make them have to run back at us. The more times they run back at us, we have the fitness to do it. I keep saying I'm getting excited now. We have the fitness to do it. We have to test their fitness. We have to keep the ball in play. If it's not happening for us phase after phase, that's when we make the decision. So you got Ross pulling the trigger, but we've also got Ringrose right in there making decisions. We've got Ryan in there making decisions. We've got a backline who can make decisions, and they've all got boots on them. So should it happen, I do think with a rush defense that they're going to try and do certainly early. There's a ball over the top if they're out of position. And I do think that James Lowe's left foot can be used to just alleviate all of this pressure, allow us to reset and make sure he finds touch and make sure we're down there to just throw James Ryan up in the middle and get him to stick his big saucepan paw up in the air and at least slow them down there and make them come back to us, make them come to us. And then we start chinking away at them.
And thus I have my quote for my TikTok promotion later on. Fair play to you. And now, just as a little bonus, with it being a final and all, we're very grateful to Rugby Kino Muller, for doing some stats for us ahead of the big match. So take it away, Kino.
5 quick stat points ahead of Leinster versus La Rochelle this weekend. Number 1. This season, when Leinster have made 150 tackles or more, they've scored an average of 30.6 points per match. But when they've made 120 or fewer tackles, they've averaged 38 points. Unfortunately, La Rochelle lead the top 14 for carries per 80 minutes, averaging 112.2. So that's the advantage La Rochelle on that one. Point number 2. Teams who face Leinster this season who have won 95% or fewer of their rooks have averaged less than 18 points, compared to 25.8 points for those who retain 98% or over. La Rochelle have lost the 3rd most rooks per 80 in their league performances and have secured just 94% of their rooks this season. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, they've averaged more turnovers won in the Heineken Cup this season than any other team at 9.6 per 80. Number 3, in the top 14, La Rochelle have lost their own ball at line out 4 or more times on 6 occasions. In 5 of those matches, they have scored fewer than 20 points. Leinster have selected a very quick and mobile pair of locks, and the team average line-out success rate for Leinster is 93.2%. La Rochelle have a whopping 83 penalties to Leinster's 67 in the Champions Cup this year. And number 5, Ross Byrne has been successful from 86% of his kicks at goal in the Champions Cup this season, 5 percentage points better than the expected goal kick percentage of 81%. He's also made over twice as many line break assists as any other player in this campaign. So there's the stats. Make of them what you will.
Many thanks, as always, to Kino for crunching the numbers for us. And now we return to the show. So now we're gonna move on to the officials. Jakob Piper, like I say, is holding the whistle, and the assistant referees are Carl Dixon and Christoph Ridley, with Tom Foley in the TMO booth. And the weather for Dublin on Saturday evening is meant to be cloudy, 10 degrees, just 25% chance of rain, practically no wind. So I'd say, again, perfect conditions for rugby. Don't have to count in the weather at all. And that brings us to our predictions. Now, there's another match on the Friday evening in Dublin as well. So let's have a quick look at that first. It's Glasgow against Toulon in the Challenge Cup final. How do you see that going?
Toulon, I think they look nice and confident when they're out for dinner in the Black Rock the other night. I think, it's Toulon by a couple of scores.
Yeah, I mean, their team has a bit of a dad's army look about it, with the likes of Parise and Bastero and all them going on. Half of them I thought had long since retired, and Dan Bigger. But it's going to need a team performance from Glasgow to even things up. A lot of experience of finals as well in that Toulon team. But it should be a good occasion around Dublin as well. And best wishes to any Glasgow supporters, especially traveling over for it. Okay, so finally, just time for a quick look back at our virtual Champions Cup final. Well, I have to say, even though it's computer generated, I was nervous as this was printed out. It was close right up to the end, the last 5 minutes. But a Kieran Frawley try, followed by a strong defensive stand, clinched it for Leinster. We will definitely take that tomorrow, 29-24. I will definitely take that. I'll take a 1-point win, any 3-0, anything. But we'll definitely take it. What do you say for it going, man?
Yeah, I would actually go. I think that's what it is. I think it is a late score. I think it is the work done in the first 55 minutes will start paying off. Frawley's not a bad shout, but Jeannie Mac, I think it's a score in the last quarter, and I'm hoping it's not a defensive stand at the end. I will not be able to handle that. But again, our big left boot might come in, and it might be a couple of clearance kicks that kind of help us excel. It's one score either way. It's got to be one score in blue.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, listen, we're going to leave it there. Many thanks to Keego for joining me today, and indeed all our preview shows throughout the season. Much appreciated, man.
Absolutely. Great crack on a Friday.
And thanks to all who watched, shared, and commented. Best wishes to all traveling to D4 on Saturday. Indeed, all those watching around the globe. Make sure you get on social media and give the boys in blue your full support. And of course, keep an eye out for our rap pod, which will be recording on Sunday evening. In the meantime, go Leinster. Stay safe, everyone. Slán.